There is a battle that every military academy in the world still studies. West Point teaches it. Sandhurst teaches it. The German General Staff in 1905 built their entire plan for the next world war around it. Rommel studied it. Patton studied it. The Israeli Defense Forces model encirclement doctrine on it. The battle happened in 216 BC in a wheat field in southern Italy, and it killed approximately 70,000 people in a single afternoon. It is called Cannae, and it nearly destroyed Rome. To understand Cannae, you have to understand what came before it. This is not Rome's first fight with Carthage. The First Punic War ended in 241 BC with Rome victorious, Carthage humiliated, and Sardinia and Sicily taken from them. Carthage spent the next generation rebuilding. In Spain, under a general named Hannibal Barca, who brought his young son along to learn the trade. When the boy was old enough, his father made him swear an oath of eternal enmity toward Rome. The boy's name was Hannibal. He means grace of Baal. He was 9 years old when he made the oath. He spent the next 40 years keeping it. By 218 BC, Hannibal is in his late 20s, commanding Carthaginian forces in Spain, and he has decided to start the Second Punic War on his own terms. Rome expects him, if he attacks at all, to come by sea. Instead, he marches his army. Approximately 100,000 men, 37 war elephants, cavalry, Numidian light horsemen. North through Spain, across the Pyrenees, through Gaul, and then into the Alps in late autumn. This is already insane. The Alps in autumn. With elephants. The crossing takes about 15 days and kills roughly half his army. Snow. Ice. Rock slides deliberately triggered by mountain tribes above the passes. Elephants die. Horses die. Men freeze. What comes out the other side of the Alps into northern Italy is an army of maybe 26,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry, and somewhere between 0 and a handful of surviving elephants, exhausted, frostbitten, short on supplies, far from home. And then Hannibal wins. At the Trebia River in December 218 BC, Hannibal defeats a Roman army of about 40,000. He lures them across a freezing river in the morning before they've eaten breakfast, springs cavalry and his brother Mago's hidden force on their flanks, and destroys them. 10,000 escape. The rest are dead or captured. 3 months in Italy, one devastating win. Rome sends another army. At Lake Trasimene in June 217 BC, Hannibal sets the largest ambush in recorded history. He hides his entire army, 40,000 men, in the hills alongside a narrow lakeshore road, in morning fog so thick the Romans cannot see more than a few yards. A Roman army of 30,000 marches into the corridor. The signal is given. In less than 3 hours, approximately 15,000 Romans are killed. Many of them drowned, trying to flee into the lake in full armor. The consul Flaminius is killed. The Romans didn't even get into battle formation. 2 catastrophic defeats in 6 months. Rome is in genuine crisis. Rome's response to this crisis is to appoint a dictator. Emergency powers, 1 man in command. The man is Quintus Fabius Maximus. His strategy is radical in its simplicity. Do not fight Hannibal. Avoid pitched battle. Follow him. Harass his foraging parties. Cut his supply lines. Deny him the decisive engagement he needs to break Rome's Italian alliance network. Starve him of victories. Wait. This strategy works. Hannibal cannot force a battle if the Romans won't give him one. The problem is that the Romans hate it. They call Fabius Cunctator, the delayer, as an insult. The strategy is cowardly, they say. Undignified. The public demands blood. By 216 BC, the political pressure is overwhelming. Fabius's term as dictator ends. The Roman Senate authorizes the largest army Rome has ever put in the field. 8 legions, plus allied troops, probably 80,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry. They will find Hannibal and destroy him. Rome is confident. They have the numbers. They have the legions. They have never lost a battle with this much force concentrated in one place. What they do not have is a unified command. 2 consuls share command on alternating days. Lucius Aemilius Paulus, a careful soldier who doesn't want to fight, and Gaius Terentius Varro, a populist who absolutely does. This detail matters enormously. Hannibal has been in Italy for 2 years. He cannot get supplies from Carthage. The Carthaginian Senate, controlled by his political rivals, refuses to send reinforcements or money. His strategy has always depended on breaking Rome's alliance with the Italian cities. If enough Italian peoples defect to Carthage, Rome loses its manpower base and cannot sustain a war. But the Italian allies, mostly, have stayed with Rome. He needs one more enormous, undeniable, catastrophic Roman defeat. Something so overwhelming that the alliance system simply collapses. He needs Cannae. August 2nd, 216 BC. The site is near the town of Cannae on the Aufidus River in Apulia, southeastern Italy. It is brutally hot, August in southern Italy, and there is a southeast wind blowing, called the Vulturnus, that blows dust and grit into the Roman lines. Hannibal chooses the ground. He positions his army with the river behind his right flank. This is not accident. It prevents his weaker Numidian cavalry from being outflanked on that side. The Romans are facing into the wind and the sun. These things are not coincidences. The Roman army deploys in its standard formation. Heavy infantry in the center, the legions, cavalry on the flanks. But they do something unusual. They make the infantry formation deeper than normal, more densely packed. The theory is to concentrate mass and punch straight through Hannibal's center by sheer weight. There are approximately 80,000 Roman infantry and 6,000 cavalry. Facing them, approximately 40,000 Carthaginian infantry and 10,000 cavalry. Hannibal is outnumbered in infantry. His cavalry is superior, and he knows how to use it. Here is Hannibal's formation, and here is why it is still being studied 2,200 years later. He places his best African veterans, the heavy infantry who have fought with him across Spain and the Alps, on the two flanks of his infantry line. In the center, he places his weakest troops, his Gallic and Spanish infantry, and he pushes the center of his line forward, toward the Romans, in a convex bulge. The center juts out toward the enemy. The Africans are held back on the flanks. The whole line looks like a half-moon bowing toward Rome. Hannibal's cavalry. On his left flank, the Iberian and Gallic cavalry, commanded by Hasdrubal. Hannibal's cavalry commander, not his brother, facing the Roman and Italian allied cavalry on the Roman right. On his right flank, the Numidians, facing the Roman allied cavalry on the Roman left. The Romans put their Italian cavalry on the left where the ground was more open, and their Roman cavalry, fewer of them, on the right near the river. They have 6,000 cavalry against Hannibal's 10,000. The cavalry imbalance is going to determine everything. The battle begins. On the Roman right, near the river, Hasdrubal's Iberian and Gallic cavalry crash into the Roman cavalry in close, brutal fighting. It doesn't last long. Hasdrubal's cavalry is heavier, more numerous, and has been fighting longer. The Roman cavalry breaks. Hasdrubal does not pursue. He orders his cavalry to wheel around the back of the entire battlefield. This is the critical move. The cavalry ride around the Roman army to strike the Italian cavalry on the other flank from behind. In the center, the Romans press forward. The legions push into Hannibal's Gallic and Spanish infantry, and the center retreats. Not a rout, a deliberate, controlled withdrawal. The Gauls and Spanish fight while stepping back, maintaining their formation, but giving ground. The convex bulge starts to flatten. Then it inverts. The half-moon bowing toward Rome becomes a half-moon bowing away from Rome, with the Romans pressing deep into the concavity. The Romans see this as success. They're pushing the enemy back. They press harder. The infantry packs more tightly. Men in the rear push against men in the front. The legions are now a dense mass, moving into a closing trap. On the Roman left, the Numidians and the Italian allied cavalry skirmish inconclusively, by design. The Numidians are there to keep the Italian cavalry occupied and in place. They're not trying to win. They're waiting. And then Hasdrubal's cavalry arrives from behind, having ridden around the entire battle. The Italian allied cavalry is hit from front by Numidians and from rear by fresh Iberian and Gallic cavalry. They break immediately. Now the trap closes. The African veterans on Hannibal's flanks, who have been standing, waiting, watching the Roman legions pour into the center and pack tighter and tighter, receive the signal. They pivot inward, 90 degrees. They are now facing the sides of the Roman infantry mass rather than the front of it. They advance. They hit the packed flanks of the legions. And Hasdrubal's cavalry, having just destroyed the Italian allied cavalry, swings around and attacks the Roman rear. The Romans are surrounded, completely enclosed on all sides, African veterans left and right, Gauls and Spanish in front, cavalry behind. And they are so densely packed, men who were pushing forward into what they thought was a retreating enemy, that they can barely lift their weapons. Legionaries need room to swing a gladius. They don't have room. Men are being killed and cannot fall because there is no room to fall. The battle is over. The slaughter has begun. It lasts most of the afternoon. Approximately 47,000 to 70,000 Romans die. Scholars dispute the exact figure, but the order of magnitude is not in dispute. 80 former consuls and praetors, the flower of the Roman aristocracy, die in the field. Among the dead, Lucius Aemilius Paulus, one of the two consuls. He had been wounded, was found sitting on a stone by a Roman survivor who offered him his horse. Paulus refused. He had commanded on this day. He would die here. He died there. Gaius Terentius Varro, the consul who had pushed for the battle, survived. He fled with about 70 cavalry. The Roman Senate, in one of the stranger moments in their history, formally thanked him for not despairing of the Republic. He had just lost 70,000 men. They thanked him. After the battle, Hannibal, Hannibal's cavalry commander, urged him to march on Rome immediately. "Come," Hannibal reportedly said, "we will finish this in 5 days. You will dine on the capital." Hannibal said he needed time to think. Hannibal's reply has echoed through history. "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal. You do not know how to use one." Hannibal did not march on Rome. Whether this was genius or catastrophic error has been debated for 2,200 years. Rome had walls. Hannibal had no siege equipment. He was 1,000 miles from Carthage, without a supply line. He was waiting for Rome's Italian allies to defect. Some did. Most didn't. Capua, the second largest city in Italy, defected to Hannibal. Several other southern Italian cities followed. Philip V of Macedon allied with Carthage. Syracuse in Sicily sided against Rome. It looked like the beginning of the end for the Roman alliance system. And then it stopped. The bulk of the Latin allies, the people Rome most needed, did not defect. The Roman system, built on a genuine network of mutual rights and legal relationships, not just fear, proved more durable than Hannibal's plan required. In Carthage, Hannibal's messenger arrived bearing proof of the victory. 3 bushels of gold rings stripped from the fingers of dead Roman knights. The equites, the aristocratic cavalry, he poured them on the floor of the Carthaginian Senate. The image is astonishing. A pile of gold rings, each one belonging to a dead Roman senator's son. The Carthaginian Senate saw this and debated whether to send reinforcements. They decided not to. Hannibal's political rivals controlled the Senate. He had won the greatest land battle in history. He got no help. Rome's response to Cannae is one of the most remarkable things in the history of states. There was panic. Senators fleeing the city, talk of abandoning Italy entirely. A Roman noblewoman reportedly grabbed one such senator by the scruff of his neck in the forum and dragged him back. The Senate convened. Mourning was limited to 30 days. Slaves were conscripted. The volones, given freedom in exchange for military service, in a measure that would have been considered unthinkable before the crisis. The minimum age and wealth requirements for military service were lowered. Rome began putting 25 legions in the field simultaneously. The Republic was mobilizing for total war. The Fabian strategy was readopted. Quietly, without anyone admitting the previous abandonment of it was a mistake. Fabius Maximus was given a command again. The logic was obvious. Hannibal cannot be beaten in open battle. Do not give him open battle. Attack his supply lines. Retake the cities that defected. Starve his army in the Italian countryside. And simultaneously take the war to Carthage's other fronts. Spain. Sicily. Africa. The strategy Varro had rejected was quietly, without public announcement, recognized as correct. The key move was Spain. Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal, not the cavalry commander at Cannae, but his actual brother, was holding Carthaginian Spain with another large army. If he could march that army over the Alps as Hannibal had, Rome would face 2 Hannibal-caliber threats simultaneously. The man Rome sent to Spain to prevent this was a 25-year-old whose father and uncle had just been killed by Hannibal's forces in Spain. His name was Publius Cornelius Scipio. He was given the command nobody else wanted, in the theater everyone considered secondary, with an army that was the remnant of previous disasters. He was 25. Scipio in Spain. Methodical, brilliant, studying Hannibal. He understood what Hannibal had done at Cannae. The deliberate center retreat, the African flanking pivot, the cavalry encirclement. He used similar tactics himself. By 206 BC, he had conquered all of Carthaginian Spain. Meanwhile, Hasdrubal Barca did march over the Alps in 207 BC. He succeeded where no one expected him to. And an army of 50,000 came into northern Italy. For a moment, it looked like the nightmare scenario might happen. Two Barca brothers, two Carthaginian armies, converging on Rome from both ends of Italy. The Romans managed to intercept Hasdrubal before he could link up with Hannibal. At the Battle of the Metaurus River in 207 BC, the consul Gaius Claudius Nero made a remarkable forced march, pulling forces from Hannibal's front without Hannibal realizing it, and struck Hasdrubal's army with combined Roman forces. Hasdrubal was defeated and killed. The Romans sent his severed head to Hannibal's camp. Soldiers threw it across the picket line. Hannibal reportedly picked it up, looked at it, and said, "In this I see the fate of Carthage." He had been in Italy for 11 years. He would spend 4 more, undefeated in battle, going nowhere. Scipio returned to Rome in 206 BC covered in glory. He was elected consul for 205 BC at age 30 or 31, below the legal age, but nobody argued with results. His proposal was radical: invade Africa directly. Take the war to Carthage's home territory. Force Hannibal to come home. The Senate was skeptical. Fabius Maximus opposed it. Scipio got permission but limited resources. He could take volunteers and allies but no regular legions. He assembled an army anyway, trained it obsessively in Spain-style tactics, and sailed for Africa in 204 BC. In Africa, Scipio won. He defeated Carthaginian forces, burned their camps in a night raid that killed tens of thousands, and forced Carthage into a diplomatic panic. They recalled Hannibal from Italy. Hannibal had spent 15 years in Italy, undefeated in open battle, and now he was ordered home to save the city he had been trying to protect all along. He left without having achieved his strategic objective. The Italian alliance network had bent but not broken. He sailed for Africa for the first time in his adult life. The Battle of Zama, October 202 BC. Hannibal versus Scipio. Two of the greatest commanders in the ancient world, finally facing each other directly. They reportedly met beforehand to negotiate. The only time two such figures talked in person before fighting each other. No deal was reached. Zama was the reverse of Cannae in almost every way. Scipio had superior cavalry this time, and he used it for encirclement. Hannibal's war elephants were neutralized by a trick. The Roman lines opened corridors and let the elephants run through. When Hannibal's veteran infantry finally hit Scipio's lines, they almost won. Then Scipio's cavalry returned from pursuing the Carthaginian horse, hit Hannibal's rear, and it was Cannae in reverse. Hannibal's army was destroyed. Scipio had used Hannibal's own weapon against him, and won. The peace terms: Carthage lost Spain, most of its navy, all of its overseas territory, and paid a massive indemnity. Hannibal remained in Carthage, served as a reforming civil official, tried to put the city's finances in order. His enemies accused him of plotting with foreign kings. Rome demanded his extradition. He fled, spent the rest of his life advising Eastern kings, always a step ahead of Roman envoys sent to capture him. In 183 BC, cornered, he reportedly took poison he had kept hidden in a ring for years. His last words, according to Livy, "Let us relieve the Romans from the anxiety they have so long experienced, since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for an old man's death." Scipio Africanus's end was similarly ironic. The man who saved Rome, who defeated Hannibal, spent his later years defending himself from political prosecution. His enemies persecuted him with corruption charges. He retired from Rome in disgust, moved to his estate, and reportedly asked to be buried there, not in Rome. His supposed last words: "Ungrateful fatherland, you shall not have my bones." He and Hannibal died in the same year, 183 BC. The two greatest commanders of their era, both dying in exile or humiliation in the same year. Back to the battlefield. What did military thinkers take from Cannae? The lesson, distilled: the frontal battle of attrition. Two armies hitting each other in the middle until one breaks, is inferior to encirclement. Surround the enemy. Cut off escape. The surrounded force cannot fight effectively. It's already defeated psychologically before the killing begins. If you can achieve a double envelopment, attack both flanks simultaneously while pinning the center, you can destroy a force much larger than your own. Hannibal did it with 50,000 against 86,000. The math of encirclement is brutal and favorable. Alfred von Schlieffen, chief of the German General Staff, retired in 1905 and wrote a paper titled simply Cannae. His thesis, modern military doctrine should aim at the same result Hannibal achieved: total encirclement, total annihilation. He designed what became the Schlieffen Plan accordingly. Germany would swing a massive force through neutral Belgium, arc south, and envelop the entire French army against its own eastern border fortifications. France in 6 weeks. Then pivot east against Russia before it could fully mobilize. A Cannae on an industrial scale against a nation-state. The plan failed. In 1914, Germany modified it, reduced the strength of the right wing, the crucial swinging arm. Belgian resistance delayed the advance. The British expeditionary force arrived faster than expected. The French counterattacked at the Marne. The encirclement never completed. The German army ended up facing France in a straight line from the Channel to Switzerland. Trench warfare. 4 years of exactly the frontal attritional combat that Schlieffen had been trying to avoid. The failure to achieve Cannae produced the Western Front. In 1942, the Soviets studied Cannae too. At Stalingrad, after months of brutal urban fighting, Soviet generals Zhukov and Vasilevsky planned Operation Uranus, a double envelopment of the German Sixth Army. 2 Soviet armored forces would punch through the weaker Romanian forces on the flanks, swing around, and meet behind Stalingrad, encircling the entire German Sixth Army. On November 19, 1942, they launched it. In 4 days, 330,000 German and Axis soldiers were surrounded. The trap that Hannibal had invented was executed on an army of 330,000 by 2 generals who had read the same history books as Schlieffen. In June 1944, while the world was watching D-Day in Normandy, the Soviets launched Operation Bagration against German Army Group Center. It was larger than D-Day. It was, arguably, the most successful military operation of the entire war. Soviet forces executed multiple simultaneous encirclements, destroying Army Group Center so completely that Germany never fully recovered on the Eastern Front. German losses, approximately 400,000 to 500,000 men. In the West, this is barely taught. In Russia, it is the decisive moment. The moral question that nobody in military academies likes to sit with. Cannae is presented as a masterpiece. The textbooks describe the maneuver with something close to admiration. Hannibal is rated among history's greatest commanders, and this masterpiece killed approximately 70,000 people in one afternoon. It created a methodology that was used to kill 330,000 at Stalingrad and several hundred thousand more in Bagration. And, if the Schlieffen Plan had worked, would have aimed to destroy the French army in 6 weeks. Every encirclement operation in history is a descendant of what happened on August 2nd, 216 BC in that wheat field in Apulia. We praise the geometry. We don't often count what the geometry costs. Cannae today, the battlefield is a small archaeological park in the Puglia region of southern Italy, near the modern town of Barletta. There are a few ruins, some interpretive signs, a small museum. On August 2nd, some years, local historians commemorate the battle. You can walk the ground. The Aufidus River, now called the Ofonto, still runs near the site, smaller than it was. The field where 70,000 died is quiet farmland. Olive trees, wheat stubble in summer. The wind from the southeast still blows in August. Whether it blows dust into anyone's eyes depends on which direction you're standing. What Cannae teaches, finally, is not just about maneuver. It is about the limits of tactical genius. Hannibal won the most perfect battle in Western military history and still lost the war. He won because he understood that the Romans would do what they always did, pack tightly and push forward, and he used their strength against them. He lost because destroying armies doesn't end wars, breaking the will to fight does. Rome refused to break. They absorbed 70,000 dead in one afternoon and kept fighting for 14 more years. The battle that invented modern military strategy did not invent a way to win wars. It invented a way to kill armies. The two things are not the same.